very cool one. Okay, everyone, hello and welcome to another episode of the VividChim Podcast. The only podcast where OBS decides to add a bunch of stuff to your scene that makes text unreadable. Thanks! Thanks so much. But joining me this week, we have a connoisseur of children's card games. We have a podcast host of the YemmyCast, the person who owns Mr. Predictor, which is one of my favorite gimmicks that I've seen. There he is.
Yeah.
Always love Mr. Predictor. It's YemmyTheFerret. Yemmy, welcome to the show.
Hey, what's up, everybody? It's me, YemmyTheFerret.
YemmyTheFerret. Okay, so for anyone who might not know who you are, and if they do, I mean, come on now, it's Yemmy. Everyone should know Yemmy. Explain what you do to the lovely, lovely people.
Well, pretty much the channel is broken down into 3 different things right now. I got one podcast. It's all video game related called YemmyCast, a video game podcast. It's available pretty much everywhere that you can think of, even on like old cellular devices that Nokia's and stuff like that. Actually, I don't think they are, but it doesn't matter. I also open up Yu-Gi-Oh card packs now, which I've gotten like 4 episodes of those out now, and I have a whole bunch of them like in the works, and I just have like I don't have a binder yet, but I just have cards laid back here.
You know, I literally we'll definitely touch upon this a bit more, which is a bit of a little spoiler for later in the show, but I actually do have Yu-Gi-Oh cards still, and I'm just like, wow, I still have these. The shelf decoration now.
Well, I got 2 giant promo cards right there.
Oh yes. I think I see it back there.
And then last thing I do on the channel is pretty much just live stream. I live stream a few times a week, and that's
you were live before this show, and you fucker New Dawn, I believe.
Yeah, I was trudging through New Dawn, which not too much better than 5. I mean, I like the visuals better than 5, but all in all, I feel like the game is just about the same in levels of like it's AI quality and game quality and stuff like that. And I don't know, the map it's definitely more RPG based.
It was like, that was a game which kind of like, it got announced and everyone was like, oh, okay, another Far Cry game. You know, I like Far Cry games. And then it kind of just came out and everyone was like, oh, it's out. Okay, well.
Yeah. What's this? And nothing too amazing.
What is this?
It looks pretty, but everything else is like, yeah, it's just a Far Cry game.
So the way this works, for anyone who doesn't know, and if you don't know, you can find VODs of the previous podcast on the Twitch channel, obviously VividChim, where you're watching it right now. Or if you're watching the VODs, you can find it on the YouTube channel, youtube.com/VividChim, or Castbox, which is a free mobile podcasting app. You can download that, search VividChim, and you will get the previous episodes of the VividChim podcast. There's 3 of them that you can go back and watch. Or 4 if you're me and keep forgetting how many of these you've done, even though we're under 5, because numbers, I guess. I'm a journalism student. Numbers ain't my thing. I do the words, okay? But yes, the way this works is we're going to jump into some headlines, and then after that, Yemmy is going to bring a game or game franchise of his choice to the table, which we're going to discuss a little bit more about why it means so much to him and why he enjoys it so much. And then we're going to finish off with some shilling of some products that we enjoy in life. Anything, really. Anything's allowed, you know. For week 1, I shilled a Wi-Fi extender, and, you know, it's a real open field. It can literally be anything.
Wi-Fi extenders saved my life every day on the job.
You know, they did good things for me at the end of the day, and it needed to be said. And then we'll just wrap up with some shilling of ourselves. But first we'll go right into the news, and I think the best way we can start is by following up from last week. There's another Nintendo Switch announced. Another one. It's like, honestly, we're going to have 800 of these like Pokemon. It's going to be insane.
It's going to be like the Wii models. There are so many Wii models.
It's already getting to that point, really, isn't it? It's like, you could have your red Wii, and this one comes with the extra sports, you know?
The red one didn't even have internet access, and I don't know why they would do that. Are we going to see a non-internet accessing Switch in the future? Who knows?
The Switch Retro.
They're going to make a Switch 3DS, but it's just 2... It'll be 2 Switches like folding together.
With Wiimotes attached to the sides.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. Yeah, so they announced another one. I guess you could call this the Switch Pro that was rumored, I guess, but the only improvement that seems to be the case is extended battery life, which is something we actually touched upon last week, because they announced the Switch Lite, but it didn't. The official Nintendo sources mentioned that it didn't have a extended battery life, but the CNET report did. So we were like, well, if this isn't the thing, they need to get on to that because it's a handheld console,
Right.
But here we are with a new Switch with better battery life, but nothing else apparently, which is strange. But apparently we might have another one at some point. Who knows? There was the VR rumor, Switch VR, which I think is just a tablet you sellotape to your face. I don't know. They keep coming hot and fast. And who knows? We might get one that's affordable at some point. So there we are.
Yeah, I'm thinking if it's not on the next one, I think because Nintendo said they were thinking about going into the 5G, like 5G capable stuff, and I was like, that could probably work because then the online might actually work, but you never know.
Yeah. Oh, so Nintendo Switch and online, that's something that seems to bring up a lot of heat.
Oh, yeah, it just doesn't work usually most of the time.
What? I wanted to do 5G because I want to walk around with my Switch tracking my footsteps on a Pokemon Go for the Switch. And I don't mean Let's Go, I mean Pokemon Go on the Switch, connect my account, just walk around with that, maybe have like a little harness around my neck, tablet by there, then I can walk out into a road and get hit by a car or something, But yeah, there's really not much to say about this one, I'm not gonna lie. It's just, we touched upon it last week, like the Lite and how people are umming and ahhing. Actually, what were your thoughts on the Switch Lite when that was announced?
I like the new design of it because it has a D-pad instead of like just regular buttons. I don't like that it doesn't have the docking ability, so it really takes away the Switch part of the console. Yeah. But for me personally, like, it's a good, affordable console, especially if you're someone who's on the go more than someone like me who usually just plays at home. Or once in a while there's a 3-hour car ride I have to do, so I bring the Switch with me, and usually the battery lasts me that whole time. But I think the extended battery life and the portability of this one's going to be a major selling point. And people are already theorizing that it's going to sell better than like the 3DS or something like that, and it might knock the 3DS off Nintendo's
lap. When it was first announced, a lot of people were like, okay, so this is where the DS is starting to get phased out then as an old system. And I mean, let's be real. The DS has done gangbusters for them. They've sold so many DSs, so many variants of the DS. I own a 2DS. Big mistake on my part. I don't like the 2DS that much.
I pulled it out on one of my latest podcasts. I still have my original 3DS model in here.
Oh, really?
The original 3DS. It still powers on and everything. But yeah, still have that.
The 2DS is just a slab, honestly. It's just like a slate slab. Deprived slasher, I will pass it on the Lite. It's not like the Switch, it isn't already portable. That's very true. And that was one of the weird things I found about it, is because as a gamer, the cheaper price point kind of appealed to me, because I know for a fact I'd really only use the Switch in its handheld mode. I wouldn't really use it docked unless I was going to like do content creation with it, which is why it didn't really appeal to me, because I was like, well, as a content creator, not having that ability to dock is going to be a pain in the ass when I'm trying to make stuff, because whilst I'm sure there's ways you can do it in handheld mode, record stuff, I can't be asked for that, because that's extra steps when I can just plug it into a capture card,
Right. Like, yeah, you could just attach a GoPro to your head facing down. But then everyone sees your shorts and
and I don't have good like short like fashion, Right? It isn't there. My short fashion is mostly gym wear. So,
well, me too.
Yeah, it isn't the kind of fashion you want to be strutting on YouTube, you know what I mean? Maybe when people when it becomes fashionable to wear standard grey shorts you buy at your local supermarket again, who knows? But it's a weird thing with Switch Lite. It's like, I feel like it's going to be very useful for a select few people, but overall it kind of overlooks the main selling point of the Switch, and that is it switches.
Right. Yeah.
The docked part of it was like, I could maybe see not having the dock, but I feel like not having the tabletop mode where you can use it as a screen and then detach the Joy-Cons. Having the attached Joy-Cons, in my opinion, is stupid.
Yeah, it definitely limits what you can do with it. And
Yeah.
I like the Doug Bowser came out and was like, there's no
Yeah.
there's no way to detach him, but you can always just buy another pair
Yeah,
of
exactly. And it was
Joy-Cons.
like, oh, you can just buy another set to make some of our library playable again. I was like, oh,
Yeah.
cheers, Doug. Living up to the surname there. Love it.
Yeah. The one example I used was like, what if a kid goes out, he buys a Switch Lite and Mario Party, and it's like, okay, that's like, what the Switch Lite is 200 and Mario
Yeah,
Party is like
yeah.
$60. There's $260 right there on the table without tax, and then he puts the cartridge in, etc., and he starts to play it, and he goes, in the first game he plays, you have to detach the Joy-Con. It's like,
Yeah.
what do I do?
Can't do anything anymore,
Just
Like,
breaks it. Yeah.
It immediately fucks it up. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
just, it's and I feel like if they'd made them detachable, a lot of people would have no problem with it, really. Like,
Yeah.
I feel like people would have been like, oh, like maybe to make it a bit more accessible, sell a few more copies of games, etc. It probably doesn't cost that much to make, honestly, because it's going to be mostly the same. But because it's its own separate thing, which is essentially just like a Wii U tablet, but probably better than a Wii U tablet.
Hope so.
Yeah, hopefully. It just seemed a bit weird. But yeah, now we're getting this amazing one where it's like, hey, you can play Zelda for a bit longer whilst in handheld mode. So there we are.
Yeah.
It's immediately kind of making the handheld only one a bit pointless. How would one connect a Pro controller without a dock and unused Joy-Cons? Oh, that's an interesting one. So I don't own a Switch. So I always thought it was a bit like a wireless connection. But do you actually need a dock to use a Pro controller?
I have a Pro controller. I don't remember having to plug it in order to get the sync. But if you have one that is the USB connection, because they sell ones for like $20, they're Pro controllers, but they have a wired connection. Yeah, those probably wouldn't work. I don't think there's a USB slot on that thing.
Yeah, okay.
I think there's a micro SD slot, and then there's the card slot.
I imagine there's a headphone jack, probably.
Yeah, there's a headphone jack, and that's pretty much it, I think.
Yeah, no. If there is like a wired one, because like I said, I don't use a Switch, I don't own a Switch. My relationship with Nintendo ends with my 2DS, which I don't use, and Pokemon Go, which I do use. So, it's other than that, nothing else. But yeah, that could be an interesting one if they do like wired attachments, which you can't use on the actual Switch model without the dock.
Right. They finally added a controller with a microphone built in, so it's like, how long are we got to wait for this? Yeah.
My god. My instructions told me I had to plug it in the first time. Oh, okay. So it's like
maybe I did
time.
have to.
Okay. That is interesting then. That does limit it a bit further. Then again, though, I suppose you can't put it down tabletop way to use a Pro controller anyway. So I suppose
they'll have like giant selfie sticks you can use.
Yeah, you can attach it to your chest out there.
Yeah.
And just like, I guarantee someone is going to make that in like some.
It will be a meme.
Yeah, like you're gonna see these. Remember, like the Game Boy attachments where they'd have like the magnifier and like the LEDs to make the screen a bit brighter and stuff. It's gonna be that all over again. Where you have like you could turn it into a tabletop. All you have to do is get a little kickstand. Buy a kickstand thing, you'll be fine. But yeah, that's pretty much all we can say on this. It was announced. The new Switch looks a lot better than the Lite, honestly. I'm sure it'll cost more than the regular one because it does have an improvement, and maybe it will have more improvements. Hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully.
Hopefully. If it's just battery life, that's a bit disappointing, honestly. But
right.
There we are. We'll probably see a bunch more as well. They announced new Joy-Cons as well recently, different colors. They look quite nice. There you go. That's all I can really say.
They gotta start like making the Joy-Cons more durable. Like, it doesn't happen to me personally, but there's a lot of people that drift.
Yes.
And then, well, the one thing is my Pro controller actually has the drift. My Joy-Cons don't. So it's like I'm kind of stuck because I bought like a $80 controller, and like I'm playing Tetris 99, and the Tetris block moves over, and I'm like, I didn't do it, and then I fuck everything up.
Yeah, no, I've heard about this a lot, like how often people need to replace their Joy-Cons, and I don't like. I suppose that's one of the concerns people had when it was first announced. It was like, how easy are they going to be to break because they're detachable? It's a fair point, honestly, and if it is a thing that people are starting to like realize is an issue, that's that could have problems with its lifespan, and maybe, who knows, maybe people will transfer it to the light because you can't remove the things, so you can't have the issues that the Joy-Cons have. But yeah, that's pretty much all we got on this one. There's not much to say really at all. Yeah. It's just we wanted to touch upon it. But another one we're going to touch upon, which is a bit more in depth, is this report from GameStop and their plans to kind of survive in the contemporary gaming market. I don't know what the divide is in the US. I'll send that through to you there, Yemmy, in the little chat there. I don't know what the divide between physical and digital is in the US, but in the UK it's actually 80% digital, but AAAs have 75% physical sales. So it's still massively a digital market, but you also get most of your money out of physical ones from your FIFA, essentially, and your Call of Duties and stuff. But there's been ways that they've tried to survive here. And we will touch upon that because it's kind of similar to what GameStop are doing. This is an actual press release from GameStop. Doubles down on retail innovation partners with R/GA to redesign the future of the cultural gaming experience. It's from Grapevine, Texas. Can you imagine being from a place called Grapevine? It was like
they must really like Marvin Gaye out there.
It's either that or it's like they're very good at like rumors, you know. It's like, oh, what did you hear that? It's like, I heard it through the grapevine.
Yeah, I heard it on the beat. Yeah.
It's just like it's just a bunch of rumors and like gossip going around everywhere. Oh dear. But yeah, strategic partnership with global innovation design firm R/GA to strengthen its focus on creating unique in-store experiences as part of its strategic move in reaffirming its place in the video gaming culture. The partnership with R/GA's Austin and Chicago teams is part of GameStop's. I keep trying to stop myself from saying GameSpot because I read GameSpot and it's GameStop and I'm like, oh
yeah.
Broader business transformation strategy to involve its efforts in cultivating innovative customer-centric opportunities to bring video game culture to life in every neighborhood. GameStop's renewed customer first focus stems from qualitative and quantitative research. It's always qualitative and quantitative good research led by GameStop and R/GA, which I don't know who R/GA are. I'm assuming they're just a design firm out there. How you doing, Dragon? Welcome.
They created Transform at speed.
Oh.
For more than 40 years and expanded and evolved to offer business transformation, experience transformation, and marketing transformation through its award-winning consulting. So they're pretty much just jacking themselves off here. So.
We've been around for 40 years, see?
We're so good. 2,000 people are employed, and we go through them like water.
Nobody really likes us, see, because our trading system is a bit bullshit. Yeah. But
if you notice at the top right there, it shows that GameStop stock is actually down to 420 now. Whoa, 420!
As if it couldn't be any more accurate to gaming culture and internet culture. It's down to 420. There we go. Sadly, this podcast is not at 420. But yeah, so one of they're going to essentially the gist of this press conference is we need to do things to survive, and the two major ways they're going to do it is potentially retro-only stores, where they're going to focus on more retro games and retro technology, which, to be fair, seems like a good idea because a lot of people really like retro gaming, you know, and it's kind of
there's
hard.
Definitely been a revival of retro.
It's also kind of hard to get your hands on a lot of stuff through means which aren't in a gray area, you know. There's people buy stuff off eBay, but you know, eBay, there's always the chance. So getting it from a store, I suppose, is a bit better. And I know it's the same here in the UK. You can barely get your hands on stuff. You have to go to second-hand stores just to get your hands on a PlayStation 1 or something. And even then, it costs loads of money for a system that I don't even know if the PlayStation 1 has it entered that realm yet, where it's its value goes up again. Has it entered that realm yet?
I don't think so.
It's you know what I mean? There was that bell curve of value, you know.
Right.
And it's I suppose it's a dip of value. It's an opposite bell curve because it starts high, goes low, then goes high again. It's very weird. But yeah, the other one Other than the retro, oh look, there's a PlayStation 1.
There we go.
I
What's
sadly
in
don't.
here?
I don't
Nothing.
have props to pull from. I have an SNES and NES Classic, both of which are out of my reach on this desk. But
Yeah, I just had the PS1 and the PS2 above me. I don't know
fair.
why the PS1 is still there, but you know.
it is. But yeah, other than the retro stores, they're thinking about doing basically like little esports leagues, which is something that Game, who we touched upon in last week's podcast with Greg from Gamer Redefined, because they've been bought out by Mike Ashley, which is a very weird and long discussion we had about the potential future for that and how it might not be great, but it could be great. We don't know. Yeah, little esports leagues. They started doing them over here. We have Belong GG, which I brought up on screen right now. I don't even know if you'll be able to see this, but I'll send it to you anyway. But it's essentially a UK esports league where in game stores around here, at the back to make up for the lack of space, because they're not selling as many games anymore, a lot of them are either doing mass merchandise of games, or they're cutting it back and actually doing like little gaming centers for you to go in and play games at a competitive level. They do tournaments, and they even have leagues here. My local one is Cardiff, the Cardiff Saints, which I believe won something recently. They're in the image there, I think. I don't know. I don't really follow esports, I'm going to be completely honest. I'm not a big esports guy. But there's a lot of things where you have these little shops, you go in, I've seen it myself. It's very cool looking, to be honest. It's like this cool, secluded area. You know, you go in the back, you like sliver through the actual store, ignoring all the games because you don't buy physical games anymore because it's 2019. You go to the back, you pass the PC peripherals, you stop, have a look, and be like, damn, that mouse is expensive. Keep going, and there's like this cool, sleek black area. All these fancy looking computers, people playing like probably Fortnite or something. I don't know what they play. I think they play Rocket League and League of Legends.
They host parties too.
Yeah. I've actually seen a kids party in there, and I was like, imagine going to a game store for your birthday. How crazy is that? Like, to think of a thing.
LAN party.
Yeah,
it kind of
like,
touches back to the old days of like when you used to play
Yeah.
Halo 1 on Xbox, and everyone would kind of gather around and
It's
plug in all
crazy,
their Xboxes.
you know?
Yeah.
It's like a more refined version of that one picture where the dude's taped to the ceiling playing Halo. That went around like a couple of months ago, whenever it went around. But yeah, it's I honestly think it's a really cool idea. It's a good way of keeping these stores alive, and it gets more attention on esports because people can walk in and be like, "Oh, what's this about then?" And then they can explain, and they can be like, "Oh, cool. Maybe I'll like tune in and have a look, you know, see what's going on there." Just very like just cool little things. I honestly hope it goes well for them, because obviously digital market is taking over. Like, this is not just a gaming thing, this is in general, you know. A lot of stores are getting closed down because of things like Amazon, etc. It's just how it is, sadly. But seeing them kind of like adapt to this new culture and be like, well, if we're not selling as many games, maybe let's do like gaming, like video game adjacent things, like the playing of video games on a competitive level or whatever. And I feel like it would be much more successful in GameStop than it would be in Game over here. Because, one, America's a much bigger fucking place. So you get, like, the biggest GameStop in your area or whatever. That one becomes kind of like your arena, you know what I mean? And then you can, like, have this little league, and maybe, like, you get, like, a little local movement going on. People being like, oh, let's go, like, you know, bored, let's go watch the Rocket League match or something, or let's tune in and watch it on Twitch or something, you know. And I think it's a cool way of getting people back into stores and potentially buying stuff, because, you know, kids could be like, oh, let's all go down there, let's play like a game on all these PCs, because maybe, I don't know, little Timmy's PC isn't as good as his friends, you know, he only gets 49 frames, he's not welcome. You know. You know, go down there, he plays 60 frames, maybe 120 frames, beautiful Fortnite drop tilted, he's fine.
Yeah, GameStop has tried to do a few, like, they've...
Yes, this is not the first thing, is it?
Yeah, like, they were like, oh, we're just going to turn over the cell phones, and then they didn't do that, and then they were like, oh, we're
Game did
closing
that
down
as well.
everything.
Game
Yeah.
have started selling, like, second-hand phones and stuff, and tablets
Yeah,
and laptops.
They bought a bunch of my old phones. I just brought them all in. They got scammed hardcore, because none of those phones work, but
they don't
yeah.
check, so...
Yeah, they didn't check hard enough. They... This kind of reminds me of I went to PAX West which is in Seattle, Washington.
Okay.
And literally there's one floor dedicated to just having like 100 PCs lined up, and
Yeah.
everyone's just kind of playing, and they got a time limit.
In Insomnia, which is the UK gaming festival, the big one here. Well, there's two big ones here. There's Insomnia EGX. I go to Insomnia because I lived by it for 3 years. So, like, we went to Insomnia. The last one I went to was for my final university project, and I actually watched the Counter-Strike esports finals there because I had nothing else to do when I was waiting to do interviews, because I went there solely to do interviews for my final project. So I just either sat around at the Nintendo booth where they had competitive Nintendo stuff going on, or I went to go watch the esports on the esports stage. And it was this massive hall where half of it was the main stage where you'd go down, you'd sit down. It was the Belong Arena, the Belong that I just showed you there on stream for video listeners, audio listeners. Sorry, you're going to have to imagine this sleek black thing with like little pink highlights. But it was like a proper stage for it where they'd go out on stage, they'd play Counter-Strike. But all the rest of this hall was just lines and lines of computers, either brought by themselves or rented out and played there. And it's awesome to see like this kind of push for this kind of stuff now. You know, it's like, well, people aren't really interested in buying games physically, so let's just hawk a bunch of merch at them and make them play it at a competitive level and pay for it.
There you go.
Yeah, it's like people love showing off their skills in games. Let's give them a reason to on a public stage, and let's take money off them to do so. Can't blame them. It's good.
Yeah,
it's good business. Oh dear, but yeah, I hope this goes really well for them. Honestly.
Yeah, I could see like
I could
splitting
see
up
some
like
good stuff.
it's splitting up like the smaller
Yeah.
places locations and making them into like retro places or just straight up like merchandise places. I think that'd be a good idea. I mean, I'm not like just pulling this out just because I'm like, hey, look what I found. But I mean, GameStop has a lot of interesting things. We got
Was that a GameStop? What the shit?
this was a GameStop, and
What are your
I mean,
game stores?
well, let's see. We have GameStop. There's the Exchange.
Okay.
That's pretty. Those are the only two ones that I go to. But
Then
I
you get
mean,
a lot
Bold
of,
and
like, indie
Brash.
ones, don't you?
Yeah, there's a lot of
bunch
like
indie
resale
ones.
stores.
Yeah.
Some of them have been going out of business, but there's some that are still going strong because I think there's still a good like you know. The one that I go to called the Exchange has like it has old school stuff. Oh my gosh, I'm gonna pull out even more props for you.
This is great. This is just prop comedy right now. I'm gonna like give.
So
all
they
the
have
descriptions.
like.
So he pulled out. By the way, for audio listeners, he pulled out like the Blob Squidward shirt. That was the best way of describing that. He's now got like some kind of Star Wars.
It's the
Empire
old
Strikes
school
Back.
Micro Machines.
Oh shit!
Star Wars set.
It's just the
And-
Hoth Battle one.
Yeah, I got the Hoth one, and I also found
For this
Endor
one, I
as
can
well.
barely see the webcam on my like side, so I'm like I have to like squint to see this stuff. Oh, that's cool.
So, yeah,
so there's like
so I got
little
both of
old
these there.
stuff there. Okay.
So it's literally just like they have like all this old retro stuff that people come and they trade in. They have like a bunch of figures and stuff. It's one of those places that you go to and you go, okay, I just want to buy one game, and then you end up buying like 15, or you go there. I was gonna buy some games to stream, and then I was like, oh, but these Micro Machine sets,
that's my relationship.
they take me
with
back.
Steam for the last 7 years. I go in for
Yeah,
one
that too.
game and leave with 15. So the Priv Slasher says, some of us have disc replays and they sell retro trade-ins, movies, posters, toys. Okay, so
Pretty much the same thing. Yeah.
So if I were to describe it here, basically, because the UK is a lot smaller of a country, we actually, me and Lepty Plus guest, the first guest we had on the show, we did a little comparison, not on the show, but just as a bit of a laugh one time, to show how big America is compared to the UK. Because a lot of people don't realise how big it actually is compared to the UK. And I think it's just because nobody really cares about the UK, not even the people who live here. So you could put the UK horizontally inside of Texas.
Oh.
Just Texas. Like,
right.
And it would Texas, I think, is still bigger.
Yeah, I think Alaska's bigger than Texas, so.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah, that's still. Yeah.
It's insane. Like how small the UK is, but we have our game retailer here is Game, which is the one who does the esports arenas, and they pretty much bought out all their competition over the years, other than one who went out of business. But we also have CEX, or how they pronounce it, sex, because humor. But it's spelled CEX, and I always say CEX because it's just easier. But they do that's kind of their gimmick. They do a lot of like retro stuff, trade-ins, movies, and I'm gonna have to like try and get the dude who did a breakdown on why they're a terrible company sometime, because it's a very interesting video. I'll have to shill it sometime as well because it's great. But that's their kind of thing, is like they sell all of that stuff, and that's really the only competition we have here other than secondhand stores and charity shops. Other than that, it's just game. So
Yeah.
we don't have the luxury of choice where you have like all these like indie stores or all these like different ones and being like, oh, let's go here. Other than GameStop, you know, we have really two options, and neither of them are good. Which is why I think the digital market is so good.
Yeah. Well, it's nice to have those other stores because GameStop, you go there, and what Xbox 360 games they have Madden and FIFA, and that's pretty much it because everyone went in and bought most of the other games. So you go to like the Exchange or something, and let's say I'm looking for a Guitar Hero game, a specific one, and they have it. Or I go there looking for some games they won't have. There's like there's a few games from my childhood I was looking for, like the Over the Hedge game and stuff like that. But
oh my god.
Those are more like obscure than what I usually play.
Speaking of obscure, I once restored my local game store's faith in humanity, I think, because I went in and bought a copy of the Bethesda classic known as Brink for I guess the equivalent of it in US money would be a quarter. I bought it for a quarter.
I believe it.
It was so cheap that the insurance on the disc that I bought was twice as expensive. If not more. It might have even been more. I can't remember. This was years ago. But the next time I walked into that game store, they had a shelf full of Brink copies because I'd bought the one like 2 days prior, and I was like, this is amazing. I was like,
right.
I was the Brave Slasher says Brink was amazing. Do you know what?
It was a pretty good game.
Brink was a good game that just died a death. I think it was just too before its time and no one was interested. Yeah,
it didn't help that it was like so similar to like a Borderlands style or something like that.
And
so
I think Bulletstorm came out at the time as well.
Yeah.
The same time. But just like it needed more content and stuff. I feel like if Brink was released today, it'd be a much more popular game.
It would probably be free to play too. To be honest with you,
it probably would be free to play. I think it is free to play on Steam now. I think it is actually.
I haven't looked up that game in years.
Yeah, but I mean, look, that game is 6 feet under. You know,
right?
I enjoyed that game a lot. But yeah, I restored their faith in humanity because they were like, someone bought Brink, quick, get them all on a shelf so people buy this shit.
You'll be the one person on Xbox Live still playing it.
Yeah, all the other avatars are just like down sleeping because they all got PS4s instead now. But yeah, that's pretty much the last we're going to touch upon that because there's not much more to say. You know, I just hope it really goes well for them. It's a very promising idea to bring like esports and retro stuff in. Much more variety. Might get much more people in the stores, especially the retro ones. I find because I know for a fact that they started selling more retro stuff here. Because whilst they do sell retro stuff in the CEXs, it's not really the same, if you know what I mean. It's more like new stuff and then like 4 NES cartridges or something.
Right.
The rest of it is just newer stuff. But if they actually did retro stores here, I think a lot more people would be interested, and I hope the same goes there as well, especially in like the bigger cities, maybe like a New York, a Houston or something, you know, and like slowly spread them out. But the next one we're going to touch upon is something that you actually touched upon on your show, the YemmyCast. Yemmy.
That is true.
It is Sean Murray talking about No Man's Sky, and there's a few things that to touch upon here. I believe, did you touch upon his advice or did you touch upon the future? You touched upon the advice, I believe.
Yeah, just the advice part of it is what I touched upon.
Because he basically the gist of it is his advice for some developers was you should probably just be quiet after launch, and to stay objectively as possible, I feel like that might have something to do with the launch of No Man's Sky more than a general tip to developers. Like, if I were to, like, I'm not a developer myself. I dipped my toes in for my university final project, and it was rough, but I'm not a developer. But if I were to hazard a guess, I'd say probably talking about your game and maybe some changes and improvements to make after launch is probably a better idea than just shutting up and staying quiet. Because that's how your game kind of dies a death like No Man's Sky did for maybe 2 years. You know.
Yeah, it really has taken them like 2 years to get the game
Yeah.
up to what it was supposed to be at launch.
Yeah, and to be fair, it's pretty fun now. I played it like when the update came out, the next update, I think it was called No Man's Sky Next. It's good. It's a good game. It had some bugs that needed to be ironed out. I hope they're ironed out now. I've not played in a little while because I have other games to play and I had uni to go into and all that jazz. But
Right.
I had my fun with it when I did. I'll probably play it again at some point because I love the vibe of that game. I love the look of it. I think it's a very pretty game, but it's it didn't have a good launch. It became the meme of the gaming world for quite some time.
Yeah, yeah.
So much so that like before Next was released, I went into the second-hand shop CEX, and they had all No Man's Sky on one shelf, like they did with Brink that one time where I bought Brink. But I went into the local CEX when I was in university, and they just had a bunch of No Man's Sky copies there, and it just basically filled an entire row. And I was like, does anyone want to buy a copy of No Man's Sky?
Yeah, Jesus.
And I just tweeted a snarky tweet about it, and here I am, like 2 years later, being like, no, it's really good. Like, it's actually kind of good. I enjoyed it a lot. But
yeah, I've been following the updates and stuff like that, and even though they tempt me, like they added a land rover, they added faster travel, they added more variation to the planets, etc., etc. And I love sci-fi games. It's just I got burned so bad on that game day one. You know, it was promised to be like this huge spectacle with multiplayer and all that crap, and it's hard for me to go back to that one. There's very few games I vow to never go back to.
It's like that wall, you know.
No Man's Sky's on the list, and Godzilla from 2015 is on that list too.
So my one I'm talking about that kind of list was Battlefront 2, the EA one, and not because because of the loot boxes, because everyone immediately thinks, oh, you just like you hate EA because of their microtransactions, and to be fair, they deserve hate because of their microtransactions.
Yeah, definitely.
But I don't hate them because of that. I hate them because they robbed me of 80 quid. I bought the game, refunded it, and they never gave me my money back. So,
oh, really?
So I'm
Jeez.
like, nope. I didn't play them.
Yeah, you're out.
I didn't play the games for so long, and I was like, if their new game, the Jedi Fallen Order, if it looks remotely interesting, I will buy an EA game again. So I picked the Battlefront 2, and that's another story of a game that is now good. You know, and it's just
yeah, I haven't read into that one as much as I have with other ones, but I just remember that game. It was so laggy. It's like they have games like Battlefield 4, 5, 1.
It's such a weird
all the different numbers. And then Battlefront 2 comes out, and it's like I'm rubber banding all over the place, and I can't do jack shit.
But honestly, that's another game, and I'll probably do a full breakdown of it at some point. But it's really good now. It's really good because they got rid of all the shit. Because underneath all that shit was a good game, but all of it was piled on top, and it just stunk out the entire game. So that's the sad thing about that. But yeah, like it's like if we went about 2 years without talking to press at all. That's what Murray said in this interview.
After they fired that one guy, they were like, "Yep, we don't need a spokesman anymore."
Yeah, and I always kind of feel bad for Sean Murray, but at the same time I don't, because I kind of feel bad because he genuinely cares about this game. You know, you can tell he loves this game and loves making like games, and he's very passionate about this project, and you can tell the effort he's put in to make it what he said it was going to be. The issue is what he said it was going to be, and it wasn't. You know, that's the issue.
Right.
The Probe says, only EA series I buy is Unravel. I've heard that's really good. I've never played that, but I've heard it's really good.
Yeah, I've played the first one. It was pretty good. It's like a nice little platforming puzzle game.
You always got to love that. We got a video on right now from PC Gamer building a PC. There we are. Hope you enjoy that. Obviously, we talk about No Man's Sky. But no, the one we're going to touch upon today is because this advice, whilst I don't think is really good advice, I suppose if your game does come out like No Man's Sky did, it's probably best not to add fuel to the fire. So I guess that's a fair point, because even Bethesda didn't say much about 76 when that came out. They kind of just did their own thing with it, you know.
Yeah, and at E3 this year, they're like, "Thanks everyone for sticking around." And,
that was the best thing. It was like, because they just straight up went, "Yeah, no, we fucked up." I was like, "Really?" they wheeled out Todd Howard to get the applause and all the adoration, which sadly didn't stop at this E3
Well,
conference.
yeah, it was.
But they wheeled him out, and it was like, "Hey Todd, save the game, please." And it was like, "Hey," and then people were like, "Okay, I'm on board." But
and then 5 minutes later, they announced Battle Royale, and I was like, "Yeah,
Yep.
well, stay away from this one."
Gosh damn!
I called that too in an early episode of YemmyCast. I was like, "This one with the nuclear,"
that one
because they had the map out of everything, and they had this big nuke going off. I'm like, "That's Battle Royale right there."
Yeah,
and there was no doubt in my mind, and it came true. Very nice.
Yeah, it was like. I remember tweeting about that, and I mentioned this last week because we discussed 76 last week. So if you want a full breakdown of that game, definitely go check out that episode.
Nomad's pretty obsessed with it still.
Oh, like we were talking to Greg about it, but Nomad, I didn't even touch upon it with Nomad, but I should have.
Oh, I'm surprised he
actually
didn't bring
talked
it up
about The Last of Us.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that was a quite interesting talk as well because I'm not a PlayStation dude. The best thing was that guy they paid in the front row screaming "yeah" every 5 minutes. So the thing is with that, he isn't actually paid by Bethesda. I know the dude. He's a Twitter page called the Elder Memes. He's just a bit too excited. That's the best way. But he's not paid by them.
Yeah, I felt like
they acknowledge him, but he went a bit too far.
Yeah. Like it was almost unbearable to watch because even like things that just
weren't that
great. There he is in the front row, and
we got a mobile game, and he's like, yeah. I was like, no.
Skyrim Blades.
It's Switch Blades. Wow. But yeah, this other one, he's talking about the future of this game, and like the main gist of this is the quote that he says. Where he says, "I don't know if I'm ever happy with the game when I look at it. You probably don't look back on your writing you've done and think that's the best thing ever. It's the same when you work in a game. You just see all the things you wish you could fix or that could be better. That's part of what drives us. It's amazing when we come to the end of an update and you think we should just be done and never look at it again. But really quickly afterwards, literally the next day or whatever, people are like, we wish you'd done this. Or shame we didn't get to do that." So it's like, I think that's a very fair point, honestly. And granted, I don't think he probably should look at No Man's Sky with rose-tinted glasses. I think he should be very realistic about it. But it's a very fair quote, honestly. And they use this to clickbait the shit out of it, because all the comments that I saw when I looked at this on Twitter was a bunch of people being like, yeah, you shouldn't be happy with it. The game was shit. It's just like, chill out, dude. You know?
The one thing I keep saying about No Man's Sky every time I cover it, I go, I'm glad that they're actually working on the game and they didn't just let it rot.
Yes, that's the
so
thing.
Many of these developers who come out on early access Steam and stuff like that, so many of them are just like, okay, the game's out, $50 and boom, it's over.
That's what I love.
That's the one thing that I like about No Man's Sky is like they've actually put the time and effort into it and they've built it up to what they said it was originally going to be. Sure, they made that huge mistake of like, this is what it's going to be at launch, and then it wasn't.
No.
But I'm still glad that they pleased the fans at least, and they brought it back up to.
Thank you, Chris, for the bird. But yeah, generally though, that is why I love No Man's Sky, is because they had faith in that goddamn game. They fucking dragged it through the mud that it landed in, and they were like, "We're gonna make this worth the people's time because they paid good money for this," and that's why I love about it. But I can relate to that quote so much, because every time I make a video, I look by the time the next video comes around, I look back at the previous video and goes, damn, that was bad. It's like, I could have done this, I could have done that, I could have done that. And I always, like, every newest video, like, I'm like, yeah, okay, this is good. And I look at a past video, I'm like, god damn, why didn't I do this in that video? You know what I mean? And I think that's just being a creator, and I think that might be something you can relate to as well, is when you sit down and be like, I should have done this. You know, it's like, why didn't I do that? But one of the interesting quotes here, I believe it says it up top here, is the average No Man's Sky player now plays the game for 45 hours, which is up from around 25 hours at its launch 3 years ago, which is really good. That's 20 plus hours. And I know that doesn't sound a lot in the grand scheme of things, because obviously you have people who play thousands of hours of games, but honestly, for like a little game like No Man's Sky, I'd say 45 hours is pretty good, to be honest.
Yeah, it's more than I played in total, so.
It's got that. We got Depraved. I disagree with Yemmy. I think companies use the ability for updates as an excuse to put out shit games and then see what people want added to it. That was a trend for a little while. I think Ubisoft were the worst company for it. When they would kind of put out a bad game and be like, well, it's got to get updated, so don't worry about it. But I feel like that's died down a lot now. People are actually trying again. So
yeah, that's a different point though. I don't remember exactly what I said, but I think
you were kind of like talking about like the idea of them being like, well, it wasn't what it was at launch, but we can go out and like update it to what it should have been, you know?
Because I'm pretty fed up with companies putting out like half-made games for full price, and
Steam.
I don't think it's ever a good idea for like even in an interview with Todd Howard on Fallout 76, he even said, the game wasn't where we wanted it to be at launch.
Like, don't release it.
Same thing with Ukulele. They just put out an interview saying, "Oh, it wasn't exactly what we wanted at the beginning, but with updates, it's better." It's like that's not the way it's supposed to work.
Yeah.
You're supposed to fix the game first, play test it vigorously, like strangle it by the neck, vigorously shake it, and go, "Are you good now?"
It's like
they didn't do that with that game. They didn't do it with any of these games.
There is a reason that early access exists,
right?
And it's for this kind of stuff.
I'm okay with companies doing early access because people can beta test it. They can tell them what's wrong with it, and then they can fix it if they care enough. There's some companies who go out there and they make Grass Simulator, and they're like, "Yeah, it's good."
Believe me, I own too many of those goddamn games on Steam. It's one of those annoying things, It's like, and I feel like it's often the few that kind of like shit on the many with this kind of stuff. Where you have like, this game wasn't ready at launch, but with updates it'll be fine. And my opinion's always been, if your game isn't ready for launch, don't launch it.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. You can always push back a game. I know that people gave Nintendo so much flack for pushing back the new Animal Crossing game, but it's like, you shouldn't care. If they need a few more weeks, that's great.
And maybe because I'm not attached. Like I said, I'm not attached to Nintendo. But when I saw that and they were like, "Oh, we need to push it back to March," I was like, "Okay." At least you're saying it.
I'm a huge fan of Borderlands, and when they pushed back Borderlands 3, I was like, okay, fine. I don't mind, because I want a full, complete experience. I don't want something that I put the game disc into my PS4, I wait an hour for the update, and then I play it, and I go, yeah, what am I playing? There's nothing here. That's exactly how I felt with No Man's Sky, and then, I never want to feel that way again when I put a game into my PS4. I want it to be a complete game, and I don't want to have to wait for updates for the game to be better.
Now, obviously, this isn't always on the devs, because I feel like oftentimes it isn't always on the devs, because we do get the publisher side of it. We have you have to release it on this date, and they will not budge. We've seen that before,
Yeah, BioWare and Mass Effect Andromeda is a prime example. Anthem is another prime example where it's like it's funny because it's two of these examples is both BioWare, so I've almost completely lost faith in them.
It's almost like BioWare have kind of lost the touch or something.
Yeah, wow, who would have known? But I think it's, and like I've said in a podcast before, I think it's a combination of BioWare being overclocked and then EA being way too pushy. Yeah. They see that Mass Effect was a huge selling series, and they go, "We need to get Andromeda out as soon as we can." And what happened? You get like this game that it's sure there's like planets to explore, but it's like there's nothing on these planets. The story is shit, and then you get done with it, and you're like, okay, they're teasing another game, and then they just cancel it, and it's like, okay, well, I guess we'll never know because
all the Star Wars games they cancelled up until this point. Prime example.
Yeah.
Curse makes a good point with Subnautica in early access. Subnautica, maybe, I don't know whether it is, but it might be the best early access game of all time, in my opinion.
Really? I've never played it.
It's a fantastic game. It's the best horror game to never be a horror game, in my opinion. But the other example is Shenmue 3, where they've delayed that 3 times. That's a example.
And people are still pissed at that game. Recently, it came out that Kickstarter backers are not going to get the season pass along with the game, even though they've paid absorbent amount of money.
That's a bit, but it's like that's the risk with Kickstarter, sadly.
Recently on early access, a game called Steambird Alliance is in like beta mode, early access mode, and when I played it at PAX 2 years ago, this is almost 2 years ago now, it was a completely different game. So I launched it up, and I'm like, I'm glad they put this out because now I know it's different, and I can kind of see where it is before I actually end up purchasing it in the future. And it's one of those games like it's available to anyone who wanted the beta codes, and you can go on Steam, and I think it's early access now, free to play, so anyone can play it, and they're just testing things out. They're seeing how it works, and when it gets done, it's done, and I'm okay with that. I've been waiting 3 years for this game, and now I'm finally playing it. I'm like, whoa, it's getting there.
the best example, and I use this example every time, so why you should delay a game if you don't think it's ready is GTA 5. GTA 5 got delayed, came out, literally the biggest entertainment property of all time. Because obviously it had the hype behind it because it's Grand Theft Auto. I'm not saying if you delay your game, it's going to be the biggest entertainment property of all time. But that game came out and everyone played that game and went, holy shit, this is incredible. Like this, everything about this is incredible, you know?
Yeah.
Like, the amount of like love and care.
I played it on PS3 and I thought it was incredible.
I played it on Xbox. I played it on Xbox 360 and I was like, this is the best game I've ever played. You know? I was like,
yeah.
And it's still fun to this day. You know, they delayed the PC version how many fucking times, and that came out, it was great. You know, and whilst not all of it's great now because of the online mode and the issues that I have with that, mostly to do with their microtransactions or transactions, as I like to call them, because they ain't micro. But it's one of those things where it's like you can delay a game and it can be good, and I think that's something that No Man's Sky did absolutely fantastically, in my opinion. I think GTA 5 is better than Red Dead 2. I've not played Red Dead 2 because they won't release it on PC, so I won't know.
Yeah,
but I've heard it's good, but not as good.
Well, I have people would call them bad opinions. I have some bad opinions about Red Dead 2.
I gotta love them bad opinions.
Yeah, I mean I agree. GTA 5 is way better than Red Dead 2, but nothing's gonna beat the old days of Red Dead 1 and Grand Theft Auto 4. Of just the scope of them all and just how well they worked in this open world. And then you get to Red Dead 2 and it's like, yeah, it looks pretty, it sounds pretty, there's a lot of realistic things in there, but I just feel like all the missions kind of go the same way. You go to a place, you shoot some guys, you loot them all, and then you move on. Like, I like the immersiveness of the game, but it's just, it went a little bit too far, and I feel if it was more regular, like Red Dead 1, I would have loved the game, but I couldn't get past, like, the first, 4 hours of playing it because I was like, I'm bored. I'm legitimately bored. I'm sitting here cooking tonics one at a time, and I am bored.
And I mean, here's the real thing: just give us Bully, give us Bully 2. That's all we want. Just give us Bully 2. That's all we want.
Exactly.
That's all we want. So I think that's enough of the news. We didn't really touch upon the last one, but it's more of like a wide discussion because it's just basic points, really, you know? Right. It's like basic points that lead into much bigger discussions. But we're going into the next segment, which is the games we play. And this is the segment where my guest, Yemmy, brings a game that means a lot to them, or in this case, a game franchise that means a lot to them. And New York Noir, that'd be great. And we discuss that franchise, and he basically tells us why he loves it and why it means so much to him. So, Yemmy, what is the game that you have brought to us today?
The game or games is the original Mass Effect trilogy.
Yes.
And
that was how he said the original trilogy.
Yeah, we've already touched on Andromeda. I think it's a piece of crap, and I would not recommend anyone to play it. Not even if you're interested to see where the series went. Like, the combat evolved and it was fine, but everything else about the game, nope.
So that's actually one of the points we kind of touched upon before we went live, is that this, obviously we've played on this series, we're going to be discussing a lot of games which I'm not too familiar with, or that I personally don't like as much, or that just some different things, you know. It's like, this is the first game that we've had in it which I don't like. I don't like Mass Effect. And I think the reason I don't like Mass Effect is because I played 1 and I hated the combat so much it turned me off the entire trilogy. Because the combat
I agree with you.
The combat is bad in 1. I know that.
They really, really need to remaster 1.
Yes.
And then put out the rest of the trilogy, because after 1, the game went a little bit more arcade with the combat.
Yes,
and it was a lot more accessible to people. Like in 1, there's one mission where you go to Eden and you have to use special grenades if you want to save the people in the colony, and that's the only time you ever learn how to interchange things like that. Yeah. The one reason why I always go back and play 1 is just to have different things happen in the future installments.
That's the one thing that always excited me about it, and I feel like that's the one reason why I feel like if I'd play it now, I'd probably really enjoy it, because 1, I love sci-fi.
Right.
Sci-fi is my favorite genre.
Me too. It's amazing. Endless space, Mass Effect, everything.
It's everything about this game seems like something which I would love. But I hate the combat of that first game so much, I refuse to play the other games because I don't want to play the other games without the story of the first one, and I cannot play the first one because it irritates me so much.
Yeah, the nice thing about the second one is they made like this interactive comic book.
Yes, they did.
So you can technically do a few of the like major story points, but if you really want like everything to affect it, because like there's several characters who you meet in Mass Effect 1 who you can get them to come into Mass Effect 2.
Yeah.
Not really 3. 3 kind of was more connected with 2 than it was with 1 for most parts. But yeah, it's really interesting. Like I played around with 1 and 2 so much, and when 3 came out, I played through all my different playthroughs, and I was like, okay, so things actually are changing up until a point. Okay, everyone knows that the ending of Mass Effect 3 was a little bit
the infamous colored laser.
Yeah, and even personally, after they put out the extended cut DLC, which was a free DLC, it kind of added some more depth to the story. It made things kind of make more sense.
Which again, good idea.
Yeah, it's a good idea, and I felt like I was never pissed off about the endings. Like I was okay with the endings when I originally played them, and then I played through the excuse me again with the extended cut DLC. I was like, okay, this works. Even though there's a bunch of still images at the end, at least I'm seeing like what's happening after all the events. But I mean, if you really want a strong narrative that overreaches all these different like storylines, and you can have like a bunch of characters can die in Mass Effect 2 and they don't come back in the third one. They're replaced with people, or there's just like plot lines that are gone. It's amazing. It really is amazing. Sure one of the biggest things to happen is from Mass Effect 2 to 3, there is a character who is an Asari, and her name is Morith. And what you can do is you can actually substitute her in for Samara, who is her mother, and you're supposed to, in her loyalty mission, you're supposed to kill Morith because she's an evil Asari. She pretty much kills you if you have sexual relations with her. And you can actually, she will actually take over Samara's position in the squad. She'll act exactly like Samara, but it's actually Morith. And then when you get to the third game, sure, it wasn't as well done as I would have hoped, but Morith just does come back in the end as like a souped up Banshee, which is the Reaper version of the Asari. And it's like all that reached over, and I was glad about that, because if they just forgot about her, I would have been like, well, what was the reason of doing this? But they actually had her in the story, not as well into the story as I was hoped, like I said, but still, she was there, and it worked. It worked for the most part.
So one of the things I want to ask, because I always enjoy asking this, is one of my favorite questions to ask about this series, is describe like where you were in life when you first came across Mass Effect. Like whereabouts were you in life? What were you doing at that time? Like, what do you think about this game at that point in your life that made it like so special and stand with you until this day?
Well, yeah, Mass Effect 2 was the first one I played in the series. I didn't play the first one until after Mass Effect 2. But that was a point in my gaming career. I was in high school, and my friend was like, "Oh, you gotta get Mass Effect 2." And I was like, I was really into FPS, shooters at that time, Call of Duty, Medal of Honor, stuff like that. And so I picked up this game, and it was different from anything else that I had played at the time. And I was instantly hooked. I was instantly like going through the game so many times that I can't count them on my hands, my feet, anything. And it just like all the different things you could do for it. And I eventually picked up Mass Effect 1 to go through that, and I went through it like several times, and everything in Mass Effect 2 was changing, and I tried every combination of things you could possibly think of, and I was so ready for Mass Effect 3. When Mass Effect 3 finally dropped, that's when all of my work culminated, and everything sort of, I mean, let's be honest, most things mattered, and then a few things didn't, but I'm more of a, I look on the positive side of it, where if I don't accept Legion into my squad and I give him to the Elusive Man, he comes back as a single sharpshooter at one part, and it's like, yeah, it's a little disappointing that he wasn't implemented a little bit more, but I guess it works. I don't know.
EA essentially, what I'm going to ask is, please remake Mass Effect 1.
They really like.
So I can.
They need to give BioWare a break. Don't let them. Just have them remaster the first one and just put out a new trilogy with updated graphics and stuff like that. And the combat system from 3 is probably the best out of all of them, even though it's more arcade than 2. I still feel like the combat in 2 and 3 are just so nice compared to 1. And then like the story beats that 2 hits. 2 is still my favorite in the series by far.
I've heard that 2 is the best one.
2 is definitely the one that like
who plays a lot of it.
In terms of like story and characters, 2 has like the best because you have this tight-knit squad of characters who all have their own personalities, and they're just like, you know, Thane and Legion and Garrus, and there's like all these characters who have like so much to do with the story, and you get to play with them and you get to see them grow as characters through this one game. And like I said, you can actually have characters die in this game. Like there's a suicide mission at the end where if you don't level up or do certain things, ooh, someone's getting hit by a crowbar at the end. Ooh, someone's, you know, getting ejected out into space. You know, these characters that you've built these relationships with, and you just see one get splatted by a steel bar, and you're like, oh, I guess I should have upgraded the hull. Damn it.
My only relation to that is because obviously, like I said, I'm not like too familiar with the series because of my distaste for one, and well, the combat of one more than anything. But my only relation to something like that, like the impact of these characters, comes from XCOM of all things, where you build up these goddamn soldiers and then they go down in one hit because someone had a 2% chance of hitting them, and you miss with 95%, and then they're dead. They're dead. They're gone. And you're like, I built this dude up for so long, nurtured him like he's my child, and boom, he's dead. What have I done?
Yeah, the nice thing is really you can't really kill off a character until that final mission. So you know, it's not like they're going to be going through a mission and then all of a sudden they go down and they're like gone forever.
Up.
Yeah, it builds up and
So I discovered what was going on there, Chris. So apparently, I fell asleep with YouTube on last night, and it went on this absolutely mad spree of like if the YouTube recommended system somehow threw me from a like breakdown on a movie to a video game review to BuzzFeed Unsolved. I don't know how it jumped from that to that, and then just kept on going down BuzzFeed Unsolved for so long, and then went to pro wrestling. I don't know how it did that, but
it's a strange algorithm there.
Cheers, YouTube. Thank you for filling my feed with BuzzFeed now. Cheers. But we're going to be touching upon the top 10 most memorable moments in the Mass Effect trilogy, because if there's one thing I love doing, it's finding these goddamn listicles and then bringing them to the attention about a video game. Because there's nothing as amazing as a listicle, because sometimes they're great, sometimes they're trash. It's a real Russian roulette of journalistic integrity.
Oh, I already have qualms with this because I see that number 10 is the which was not as epic as they planned it to be.
I see. please go on. Like this is why I do this, because you see things and then people are like, is that really an impactful moment in this game?
I mean, it's like the first thing that happens in Mass Effect 3. They don't build up to it at all. Like at the end of Mass Effect 2, you see the Reapers like creeping in from outside the galaxy, and you're like, okay, so there's still time in this story. And then when Mass Effect 3 comes around, they jump forward in time. Your ship has been grounded. All your squad mates have kind of been dispersed across the universe, and right as you start the game, the Reapers are already attacking other areas, and they're like, oh, they haven't gone to Earth yet. And then Moonbase goes down, and you're like, okay, here we go. And the beginning of the game is so pointless. You could literally just skip to the part after the Reapers are initially attacking and go from there. But they decided to like add in like this council of humans who lead the Earth defenses, and you literally talk to them for 5 minutes, and then they just blow up and die. And you're like, well, whatever.
Oh dear. And so number 9 from Mass Effect 2.
This one I agree with.
And Sullivan. So explain this, because as a person,
well,
I just don't know anything about this at all. So this is all weird to me.
So like I said, Mass Effect 2 is all about the squad. It's a tight-knit squad. So the more you talk to someone and interact with someone, and if you say the right things with Mordin, he'll open up and he'll actually start reciting songs from his youth when he was a what are they called?
Okay.
And the nice thing about this is it actually affects the next game, because in Mass Effect 2, if you get him to sing that song, actually in Mass Effect 3, in one of his scenes, he actually sings a song instead of just like standing there and doing whatever. He actually sings a song while he does it, and it's really a really touching moment, and it really adds on to that moment, because it's like, oh, this was in Mass Effect 2, and now it's in 3. If you don't get that in Mass Effect 2, you don't see it in Mass Effect 3. So it's one of those things that's like really cool.
Okay.
And yeah, I agree. It's a good moment.
Then we have the death of, I'm assuming that's Kai Lang?
Yeah, Kai Lang was such a weak character.
He's a shit.
They really did not need him in this at all. He was literally he was played off as your replacement in
I love that.
in
I'm sorry,
Cerberus.
that caption is so good. He's a shitter Raiden from Metal Gear Solid 4.
Pretty much, yeah, you are that's exactly right. Like, I don't know how they can put this dude on this list. It wasn't really that great of a moment. The death of Cerberus is such a weak level, and it just when I played the end end of Cerberus, I was, this is horrible. Why did they do it like this? And Kai Lang's death was just like the cherry that just on the top of this shit sundae.
Dude, I feel like they've put it on this as a bit of an ironic thing. It was like, he's such a terrible character, but I was so happy when he fucking died.
I don't know.
So this number 7, we have the Quarian conundrum.
Yeah. This was a good culmination of like 3 games worth of work, because at the end of the Quarian storyline, there's this if you haven't done the right things, if you don't have enough reputation, you can't get the Geth and the Quarian race to merge together to become one. Not really one, but work together as one to help rebuild this planet that was taken from the Quarian race. The Quarians, they live on spaceships, and they were so advanced, and they got afraid of them, and they actually took over the planet, and they had to escape and flee. And so there's just a fleet of ships, and they wear these masks because they can't breathe outside of their planet. So essentially, when this all comes together, you have the choice of either destroying the Geth or destroying the Quarian. And if you did really well in the games in the past, you have the chance to make peace between the 2 nations, and then that's a really happy ending. So I do agree with that one. That is one of the better aspects of it, and it's one of those things that I point to where I can go, if you don't think anything mattered for Mass Effect 3, look at this. Like, you can't do this without having 2 and 1 in your save files.
So we're going to skip the ones which are about DLC, just because I feel like sticking to the core games is a bit more of a interesting thing. The additional extras, they could like add to it, and they could be very interesting, but I feel like that's something you could just like go find for yourself if you are interested in these games. So number 5 is from the original Mass Effect, is Sovereign Speaks. And
yeah, this was a big part in the game. Well, the thing is, like, Sovereign was seen as just a ship. It was the ship that Saren used to, wreak havoc, pretty much. And when you find out that, he's actually like this entity that's controlling him, you go, what? And so he you, and he gives you all this information, not too much though, very vague, and then he flies off. The one thing that I always disliked about the Mass Effect series is, like, they have Sovereign come in, he's this huge thing, and then by the end of the game, he's nothing. There's no, it's almost like he wasn't a character, which kind of made me sad. But this moment in Mass Effect 1 is one of those ones that, like, it's a mind-blowing moment, because up to that point, if you're fresh into the game, unfortunately I spoiled it for you, but you just see him as this ship that someone uses, and when he actually like comes down and speaks to you, it's like, okay, this is a little bit more in depth.
I'm always cool with spoilers, because by the time I actually get around to doing this kind of stuff, I'd have forgotten this, like most of the plot details. It's the same with like Game of Thrones. I've had all of Game of Thrones spoiled for me from like season 2 onwards, because I've watched like 4 episodes of it in season 1, and I just kind of like
same here.
And it was just one of those things, I had the entire thing spoiled for me, and I'm just like, look, by the time I actually sit down and watch it, I will forget all of this. I don't care. It's like so we have this is another DLC one, so then we have number 3, another Mass Effect 1 one, the Vermeer decision, or Vermeer. Again, this is the fun thing about space and language in general in video games and fiction, is because you could say things in so many different ways. I'm like, is it this? Is it that? I don't know. But yeah, the Vermeer decision.
It's Vermeer. This one, I don't know if I would put this like so high on the list. This is just this is the first choice you make in the game where like one character lives.
So
what was that?
I recognize the name, so I feel like this might have been something that I actually got to in Mass Effect 1.
You might have. Yeah, though I don't know if I would put it so high up, but this pretty much is the point of the game where you choose one character to live for the rest of the series and one character to die for the rest of the series, and you have to live with those consequences A lot of people would choose Ashley, but I was a person who chose Caden because in Mass Effect 3, his Reaper ability, like he can actually he can give you this ability where you can do like a little biotic thing at a guy and it will actually steal his health and give it to you. And I was like, that's the best thing in this game. And if you don't have Caden, I don't think you can actually acquire it. So I would usually choose Caden.
Ability? That's pretty dope.
And plus, he didn't get this massive redesign. Like Ashley from Mass Effect 1 and 2 to 3, it's like she got some plastic surgery there. This one, so I usually choose Caden, and I've done the romantic options with him too. Like I'm not afraid to go step over the boundary of my human form. If I did a playthrough where I romanced him, it's like, okay, it's just a relationship. It's just another relationship.
Fair. So we're moving on to number 2 now, and it's the fate, not the face. I don't know why I said face. The fate of Tachanka in Mass Effect 3. So
yeah, I would actually probably put this at number 1 because this is another one of those. Well, this is a better example for 3 games. The culmination of those 3 games. Yeah,
what's going to be above this? And how badly are you going to disagree with it? That's what I can't wait.
Yeah, I don't know.
So tell us a bit about this and how this impacted you then. If this is like the big thing.
In the first game, it's all about this character named Rex, and I have a little figure of him. This character named Rex,
I know,
and he's fighting for. Yeah, he's fighting to try and get this plague that the Solarians put on their kind, which actually pretty much aborts children of the Krogan race. The Krogan are a wartime race, and they were risen up to fight they're called the Rachni, and they're like these insects that were trying to take over the world. And essentially, the Solarians and the Asari worked together to uplift the Krogans out of their wartime efforts against each other and put them against the Rachni. But then after that was done, they tried to take over the rest of the world. So they put this poison into them that made it so that future generations, you would only have 1 out of 10 children make it. And so the Morden, who is the character we were talking about before, he's the guy who actually created this virus. And throughout 2 and 3, his character kind of changes because after talking to you and talking to other Krogan and seeing the effects of what he did, he has a change of heart. And instead of thinking, oh, we should do this, he goes ahead and he allows them to pretty much get their planet back and get their species back, pretty much. And it's a culmination of all these 3 games, all these 3 stories working together. There's so many changes and variances to this game because if you kill Rex in the first game, his brother Reeve takes over, and if you have Reeve in control, Morden's a little bit less willing to fix this, fix the virus, to give an antidote. And it's one of those things that you can really manipulate things and really get things to go haywire, especially if you force it. If you force him to do it, you end up having to shoot him in the back. He won't do it willingly. So it's one of those things that's really cool. You can also talk him down from doing it. So if Reeve is in control instead of Rex, as Rex is more level-headed, Reeve is more headstrong. You can actually talk him down, and using your renegade options, you can actually talk him down from doing it, and he'll actually be like, okay, I'll disappear. I'll go off in the space and hide, and we won't ever speak of this again. And that's another thing. It's like if nothing matters in 3. How is so much changing at this point and in the other point we talked about? So I would rank this at number 1 because it is one of those things that all 3 games, this was a major subject in all 3 of the games.
So Kirst in chat there brought up an interesting point. Mass Effect 2 is currently only £4.99. So there we go. That's a good deal for anyone who wants to get in on this. So there we are.
Yeah, it's worth it.
Yeah, I'll probably wait until I might even pick these up as a bit of a Christmas thing. I think that could be quite fun. I don't know when, because for those who don't know my work, I like linking stuff to other stuff. So a good example is we have a Cyberpunk coming out in April. So before that, I'll be doing the free Witcher games on reviews.
Oh, nice.
Oh, that's not on sale.
Yeah.
That's just the standard price. Oh, wow. So that's actually even better deal. That's just the standard price. But the things that I do later, so we got Cyberpunk coming out. So I'm going to be doing the free Witcher games beforehand because they were late because of CD Projekt Red. And one of the releases that I'm personally looking forward to is Bethesda's Starfield, because it's new and I like space. So I feel like I could
Yeah, me too.
probably do Mass Effect leading up to that and kind of like link that in there. So I feel like this could be like a good time for me to get into it, like post this conversation and being sold on this game by like via someone who I know is going to be a bit more neutral towards me about it. Like I have a friend who's like, "Oh, you should totally get this game," but you know, like he'd gain something out of that because he's my friend. But you, like, you don't gain everything either way about me playing this game or not. So I feel like this recommendation is a bit more sterling, you know. So I actually
and honestly,
if as well.
Okay.
And I feel
Just
like
one more point I have to make about what you just said. If you are going to go through the original trilogy, you might as well just play through Andromeda just to see how drastically it all changed and how fast it went downhill. Especially,
I mean, look, with a series called "How Bad Can It Be?" How could I not? You know, I feel like I have to at that point. I feel like it's my civil duty to dip my toes in. So the number one point is the suicide mission, which you touched upon a decent amount earlier. So, has your stance on that number 2 point being number one as it reaffirmed? Could you see maybe where they're coming from here, or has it become a lot more like grey? Is it not so black and white about the previous position now?
I think I would rate this at number 2 because this is one game. This is one game's culmination, not 3 games culmination.
That's fair.
Even though this is it's an amazing part of the game where you go on this, you launch the suicide mission. You go, I hope I prepared enough. I hope I did enough. And it like this, like everything up to like the final boss in Mass Effect 2, which was still an okay boss, is like pretty incredible. Like all these different things you have to do. There's like a time limit at the end of one of the missions you do. In one of them, like your ship gets taken over by the Harbinger forces, the Reaper forces, and essentially you have a time limit. If you don't go after the suicide mission in this set amount of time, your crew actually pretty much gets decimated. They get killed. So only your squad mates are with you, and it's still a great mission, and I like it. I'm just saying this isn't the most epic thing because this is just one game.
Yeah,
if the suicide mission was at the end of game 3, then I'd be talking a little bit differently. Like if you had 3 games worth of these characters and there was a suicide mission at the end of 3, that's something to put on number 1. But since this was at the end of number 2, all these characters mostly were new characters, and you grew with them. And they're if they do die, it has an impact, and if they do live, it has an impact. But it's still the second game of the series, and it's still like, it's great, but it's not better than something that stretched over all 3 games. That's all I'm saying.
That's fair. It doesn't quite have like the impact on the player and the overarching like I suppose dedication that you've put into the narrative that BioWare have kind of like tried to help you weave. So whilst it is like a big thing, it's not maybe as big. So I think that's a fair argument. So one final thing that I enjoy doing about this, and it's my favorite question to ask, I'm not gonna lie.
Sure.
Like I may have said that the other one was my favorite question to ask because it always like opens up a door, but this is the best one because it's always really funny to hear the responses. How would you sell the game series of Mass Effect to someone who has never heard of video games before?
Never heard of video games?
Yeah, like never touched a video game, like they don't know anything about video games. How would you sell Mass Effect to them?
Well, I mean, I guess I would start off by saying it's practically a space opera. It's just rich in story. It's open-ended, different. It's like a choose your own adventure type game, more in depth than like a Telltale game. But of course, they wouldn't know anything about that, so we're okay with that. But I think I would open up with it's a space opera. Think of it as like it's 3 games that it's a 3-part series, and it's just this giant space opera that goes in so many different directions that it's sometimes it's hard to keep up with, and they do so much in these games. I mean, I think someone who sits down with Mass Effect 1, never playing any other games, they might not mind the control scheme as much. They might get frustrated, but once they get to 2 and 3, I think that once 2 gets around, they'd probably fall in love and be set for life. I've played through this trilogy the most out of any other games in my are.
When I approached you about doing this show, I was like, oh, you have to think of a game, and you went Mass Effect. Almost instantly, we're like Mass Effect. It was like I played it like 50 times.
Yeah, it's one of those games that it's almost like a yearly thing for me where I play through at least one game in the trilogy, and the only game to get close to that is like the Borderlands series or Banjo-Kazooie 64. But I mean, it's still like a huge gap between my playthroughs, because when I was in high school and to college, I just had so much time, and I just played through Mass Effect on all the different systems and multiple times, and it was a great time. And I mean, I would love to be able to play through the Mass Effect trilogy for the first time again. Like, that experience you'll never get back, and it's one of those things that's like, it's kind of depressing.
So what we're going to go now is to the final segment of the show, which I like to call Shilling in the Name of, and that is where my guest, Yemmy, brings a thing in their life that they enjoy and they want to talk about, and they just shill it to you, the people. So, Yemmy, what have you brought to the wonderful people today?
Well, I brought something that was a huge part of my childhood and growing up, and this was before I knew that anime was. So the one thing I have is Yu-Gi-Oh, which is something that I'm actually gotten back into recently. So Yu-Gi-Oh was
picks here. There we go.
Yeah. Yu-Gi-Oh is like this massive card game, and it was created by Pegasus, and it's just like the Yu-Gi-Oh series as a whole. Well, yeah, I'll skim the surface then. The Yu-Gi-Oh series as a whole it's a bunch of card games that are weighted in the main character's favor, but it's still a very entertaining series, and it's a very entertaining card game to play even nowadays. Like, they've changed it so much that I need to relearn things, but it's not so much that I can like never get the hang of it. Like, I still like the old style of dueling where it was like the person with the better monsters pretty much won. But I'm okay with the new way. Like, the newest things that I've been opening on the channel are the speed duel stuff, and it's a great combination of old school and new school together. There's still like the special summonings, but there's no X, Y, Z summons. There's no ritual summons and stuff like that in the forefront, and you still get like these amazing like cards, but it's not as in depth as like the pendulum cards, which I still have no clue how to use.
I don't know how they work at all. I have to go back into this because I used to love Yu-Gi-Oh, and I still have a soft spot for this dumb fucking game. Like, I will always have a soft spot for this goddamn game. I love it so much. Especially the anime. I love the anime. It's so good. Like, it makes no sense. The writing's awful because it's translated from Japanese by 4 kids who don't know how to do a show. It's the best. I love it so much. Maybe my favorite thing about that anime is season 1 and how it just doesn't care about its own goddamn rules. It's like, honestly, if this show was like released today, if the Yu-Gi-Oh anime was released today, it would be meme to hell. It'd be so meme,
right? Because
it makes no goddamn sense. It would be all over the internet as a meme, I think, and it's great. I love it so much. The card game,
I'm like halfway through season 1. The card game's great. I still love playing it. Yeah, even though the AI are weighted to win, it's like I still enjoy playing it.
Yeah, my favorite. I actually own the video game Legacy of the Duelist, which is it goes through the anime stories, but you get to play the duels from the characters that play them, and you get to use their story decks, which aren't exactly their story decks, but is decks based on their story, which means you lead to some very good situations where it's like, I'm dueling Seto Kaiba, and he's got like some blue eyes, and I'm playing Yugi, I've got OP cards because I'm the protagonist. And then the other ones are you have, I'm playing against a dude who has like all the pieces of Exodia. I'm going to die now. I'm going to lose 6 times in a row. Oh dear God, please help me. And it just gets it's so much fun. But the card game, genuinely, I think it's my favorite card game, like on the TCGs, because a lot of people like Magic the Gathering. I never really liked Magic that much. I thought it was whatever. The Pokemon card game I never liked. I thought it was a bit kind of weird.
Yeah, I like the anime of Pokemon,
yeah.
but I never got into the card game because I was like, I don't know how to play. I just know the game from like the video games.
I know the video games, but the Yu-Gi-Oh card game I always found good. Always found it really entertaining, and I tend to dip my feet back into it now and again. I actually met the voice actors for Yugi and Kaiba, Dan Green, and Eric Stewart, both very lovely people. They were doing their voices at a convention, like some convention up in the north of England, which I was told I could do interviews with the show, like to see how they run conventions. Didn't get those interviews, by the way, so fuck you, Digicon. But I went up there and got to speak to those guys about their stuff. It was great. Got to thank them for like the work that they did, because obviously big part of my childhood. Just great stuff. And I've got one of your videos on right now. We have you doing a Arena of Lost Souls box opening, I believe.
Yeah.
So
I liked that box. That was a great box. The other one that I do, I already opened it myself, but I haven't put it on the channel. There's one for that Kaiba. It's called like a Attack from the Deep or something like that. It wasn't like my favorite cards ever, but the Arena of Lost Souls had a lot of cool cards, and I pulled a lot of like the rare cards, which was really exciting for me. And I've been working on the series, and I'm hoping that the quality is showing, because I got my points counter, which shows how much the rare cards are worth, and even though most of them are not worth that much, it's still fun to put that on the screen. And
it's like a nice little indicator, because one of the things a lot of people don't understand, and I still don't understand it, despite being involved with these goddamn card games since I was a kid. I still don't understand how cards can be worth so much. It's insane.
You should see the price of Pot of Greed. Pot of Greed is like $60 now, and
what the shit?
I recently bought.
What does it do?
Yeah. I recently bought a bunch of these packs. They're called the Duelist Pack Kaibas. These have some of the most expensive cards hidden inside them because these are out of print. I
think you bought one of those when they came out.
Yeah, I only found 2 places that still sell them, which is eBay and Amazon. And the one place on Amazon only has 1 pack left after I bought this one.
Oh my
I'm like,
God.
okay. You can get them in the Yugi and Kaiba collector packs, which have 3 of them in there. But those are about $20. And if you already have the collector's pack, you don't need to buy another one, because you get a starter deck in there, and the Yugi packs have nothing in them of value. But the Kaiba ones are the ones that...
I like that you got the anime points counters as well. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. I really wanted to try and make it a little stylish.
This is as close as I ever get to anime, is Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh. I don't touch anime other than that.
When I was younger, I didn't know they were anime, so I was watching Dragon Ball Z, One Piece, Yu-Gi-Oh, Pokemon. I just looked at them as cartoons, and they were on later in the day, so I was like, oh, these are more adult cartoons, I guess.
These are like the cooler cartoons.
Right.
I must go. You're still here in 15 to 20 minutes. I'll see you then. If not, great podcast. Thank you for coming. We'll probably be wrapping this up fairly soon. We usually try to keep it to an hour and a half. We'll be slightly over, but it doesn't really matter. I cut out a bit at the start anyway, so there I am. But yeah, there's so many. The thing is with Yu-Gi-Oh, there's so many different gimmicks, and it's insane the amount of gimmicks that they have. It's like you had the fusion and ritual back in the day. You had your fusions and your ritual cards. Okay, one was purple, one was blue. It was beautiful. Everyone loved it.
It was a simple time.
It was a simple time. And then they brought in synchros after that, and synchros was where I hopped off the wagon. I feel like that's where it was I stopped playing it. It was I really like the synchro monsters, but after that, it was just one of those things where it was I slowly faded out, and then I came back in years later, a few years later, I relapsed is the best way to put it, and I suddenly there were these black cards called Xyz, and I was like, what the hell's an Xyz? Or as I used to call them at the time, because I was an out of touch granddad compared to the youth playing Yu-Gi-Oh, I called them XYZ monsters. And then they had the pendulums, and I was like, the hell? I still don't know how they work. Now they have link monsters. I'm like, what the fuck is a link monster?
Like I was saying, the nice thing about the Speed Duel is like they took out all the pendulum monsters, they took out all the link monsters, the XYZ monsters, and it's just more of like basic monsters with like effects and stuff like that. And there's a few like link summons in there, but they're not as like hardcore as they were. Like the Yugi Moto deck, you can pretty much summon the Dark Magician just by placing one card in the field, and you use the effect of that card to like summon him to your hand, and you can discard him, and then Monster Reborn, and it's good to go.
The one thing like I always find insane is how fast the game's gotten over the years. Like,
right.
Because whenever because I dip in and out every now and again. I dip in and I'm like playing a bit of the game, then I dip out, and then I dip back in, and the game is like 4 times faster. And I'm like, what the
yeah, Speed Duel sped everything up like 10 times. Even though you still have 4,000 points to get through, those can go really fast with Speed Duels, just by what they have in the packs.
But yeah, I feel like there's not too much you could say about Yu-Gi-Oh. It's like it's a thing of the past that's still going fairly strong to this day. It's great fun. I recommend you go watch the animes. Especially as adults, the animes are some of the best stuff. We seem to have some webcam lag right now. Hopefully that comes back and is sorted. But yeah, go check it out on Amazon. Go check it out on Netflix. I believe you said they're on Netflix as well.
Yeah, the first like 5 seasons. Yeah. I think that's all the seasons. 5.
Just
it feels like more because there's 40 episodes per season. It's crazy.
I recommend bloody the first one. The first original series, GX, because it's a meme, and 5Ds because it's actually good. I can't recommend anything past that because I don't know anything. But yeah, I feel like I need context here, Mr. Fairman. This is the shilling segment. We're talking about Yu-Gi-Oh, something that is both been part of our lives. It's still part of Yemmy's life because he's making that sweet content out of it, baby. But
I'm diving back into it. Like I was because this is a story I tell to a lot of people. Is long story short, my past deck was stolen from me practically. I lent it to a friend, and that person just like, oops, I lost it. And I had like a ton of rare cards in there, like Jinzo and a bunch of different Dark Magicians. And it was a really like I based this deck around like battle axes. I had so many battle axes back in the day, but
God, I love the battle axe.
Like I had all these cards in there, like cards that I'd built up for years and years. Like all the original starter decks, I had all those cards still. And like I look back and I go, I should have never let those cards leave my hand. Like those cards should have been in my hand 24/7. And during high school, I fell out of Yu-Gi-Oh, so that's why I probably was a little bit more lenient with it. And now we're back, and the series is called Rebuilding My Deck because I literally lost my whole deck. There's no other way to say it. I lost my whole deck, and I'm putting it back together. Pretty much.
That's like a cool little thing. Is like literally rebuilding a part of your like past, you know, and like bringing it back, you know, like fun nostalgia and just a bit of fun at the same time. I was just crazy. A thought popped into my head. It was like Yu-Gi-Oh has been part of my life for like so long. Granted, I don't play it these days. I only play the video game. Which the video games, by the way, Yu-Gi-Oh video games are so annoying because they have the trap and spell indicators, you know, what it's like, do you want to activate this? Do you want to activate this? Do you want to activate this? Do you want to it just keeps going and it drives you insane.
Exactly.
But yeah, I play those. I don't really play the card game now, although I still have like some of the collectible decks you could buy from the animes. But I have these memories of going to shops with like my grandmother, who I don't see as much anymore, sadly. But it's like we'd used to go down to like the shops in like Swansea, which is the city here, and we'd go buy a booster pack or 2, or maybe even a tin or something. And it was always like this cool moment where like I'd go like back to their house and I'd just sit there looking through these cards, and they could have been terrible cards, and it would just be like, because the designs of these cards is always so good. I'm just like, oh, these, especially the older ones, they're a bit like more varied now, but they used to be like super edgy back in the day. It was like this is so cool, you know. But the stores I would get those cards from don't even exist anymore, and I'm like, holy shit. I just had my moment. I was like, God damn, those shops don't even exist anymore. Oh my God, that's insane. But I feel like that's what we're gonna do, because we're like already over time, and we do need to wrap this up at some point. We're gonna go on to my shill of the day. And I can't really show this one on screen, although I will try to show this one on screen. This comes from another love of mine. It's professional wrestling. But I'm not gonna shill professional wrestling itself. I'm gonna shill a mobile game involving professional wrestling. We seem to be having some more Discord connectivity issues right now. Sadly, that happens some of the times. Are you sure it's not BuzzFeed? According to YouTube, it's BuzzFeed, but it is not. It's a mobile game, and I know a lot of people don't like mobile games. A lot of people are like, oh, mobile games are real games, whatever. They can be, a lot of them have bad microtransactions in them, but some of them can be fun. I'm going to be talking about the video game. If I can find their website. Do they have a website? Maybe? That's not it. I don't know if they have a website, so I'm not going to show it on screen. I'll show it on my phone if I can. It's called 80s Mania Wrestling Returns or something. And there's a little, you book your own card kind of game, You just kind of, sit there, you book your own wrestling show in the 80s. It's a piss take of pro wrestling, which is always fun because pro wrestling is ridiculous. I've always said that pro wrestling is the most anime thing that I watch that isn't anime, because it is anime, but it's just not actual anime. But yeah, it's a little fun little game. You get a bunch of 80s wrestlers. It's free. That's one thing I should mention. But you can set up your own card, your own pay-per-views and stuff. And I'm gonna try and do this whilst showing you how to do it on screen without the ring light breaking everything. And you have all your cards, your faces and your heels and stuff like that. You get to pick them. They all have stupid gimmicks, this dude's a crash test dummy or something. And it's just all this good stuff. It's just a fun little game. I've been enjoying it a lot. My brother's been enjoying it a lot. It's just a bit of fun at the end of the day. And it's just something I wanted to shill because, one, it's free. It doesn't cost anything to get. And two, if you like pro wrestling in any way, it's just something funny, Just if you probably know the pro wrestling lore if you're a fan, and it takes the piss out of all of it. It's great. But yes, that is all we have time for. Yemmy, why don't you tell the lovely people where they can find you?
Well, you can find me on Twitter at YemmyTheFerret, of course. That's where you can get all the updates for anything that I'm doing, and also a lot of just random things that I think of off the top of my head. Sometimes I'll post those. If you want to, you can find me on YouTube as well, Spotify, SoundCloud, and iTunes/Apple Music. They're in transition right now. And it's all just, if you're looking for me on Spotify, SoundCloud, or iTunes, it's YemmyCast, a video game podcast. And if you're looking for me on YouTube, it's just Yemmy the Ferret. Yemmy the Ferret's where I do everything. It's Yu-Gi-Oh! Card packs, podcasts, live streams as well. Live streams on Monday, Thursday, and Saturday usually. And I have my schedule up on my Twitter page and YouTube channel as well. I always try to do a funny video now for when I do a live stream, just so maybe generate a little bit more people that come around. And
gotta get the memes.
And then
people like memes.
The newest series I have on the channel right now, which is what is every other week, it's called Player 2 and Yemmy Power Hour. That's one that I do with Player 2, who has been a huge friend of mine throughout my entire YouTube career right now. And we talk for an hour, and at an hour, it just stops. These elevator doors close, and that's the end of the conversation. There's no more. So it's just a gimmick that we kind of came up with, just to kind of make it a little bit different. And I'm hoping to get that on SoundCloud at least, because it's free to put however many hours on SoundCloud.
Yeah, I believe it's 3 hours is what I discovered.
Yeah, you pay. So I'll run out of time really fast, but they'll be on there for a little while. So yeah, that's what I got. That's where you can find me.
Okay, and obviously if you want to find me, you can do so by pretty much looking anywhere and looking for VividChim. On Twitter, it's at VividChim. On Facebook, it's /VividChim. On Instagram, it's not VividChim. It's Kanehock. That's Kanehock. If you want to listen to this podcast a bit more, you can go over to the YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/VividChim. You can go on there. You can go through the playlist we have set up as the video versions of the podcast. We've had some issues with the last few. Hopefully this one's going to be a little bit better. I've tried to fix some stuff, but exporting from Twitch to YouTube seems to be a bit weird. It seems to add a delay to things. I'm not sure why. It just kind of does. One of the other things you can find us on is Castbox, which is a free podcast app, Yemmy. I don't know if you know about Castbox. If not, I
Actually,
probably...
Yeah, send me the link after we're done
I can
here.
probably show you some of that. It seems to have, from what I can tell, an unlimited amount of hours of upload, which is always good because we have a very low budget here and we can't be bothered to pay for SoundCloud.
Exactly.
But yeah, it's a free app that you can get on your mobile phone, which means you can listen to the VividChim podcast wherever you go. Here's like the little profile page we have on it. You know, there's a bunch of podcasts on there. I listen to some pro wrestling podcasts on there. I listen to some gaming podcasts on there. We also have the VividChim podcast on there. As you can see right now, there's the episode with Lepley Plus right there. That's all available, free to download on iOS or Android. And then you can just go along there, have a listen while you're cooking. I don't know why you'd want to do that. Listen while you're playing games. Listen while you're in the gym. Do what you want.
In the car, driving around, that's what I listen to mine.
Yeah, you know, listen to the podcast in the car. It's all good. Just any way you want. And that's the beauty of having it on a phone platform as opposed to something which is a bit harder to get on a mobile phone. But yes, if you do want to support us, you can follow the Twitch channel by clicking the little heart up there. If for some reason you wish to give me money, you can click that subscribe. We have an emote. It's my little face. It's me doing a sigh. Look at it. It's right there in chat for you Twitch users on YouTube. You can give us a subscribe there. It's free, unlike it is on Twitch. For some reason, like just I wish all of these social medias would give them the same names for the same things. Maybe do a follow, then a paid subscription, because that makes a bit more sense. But there we are. It's whatever. But on YouTube, you can click that subscribe button. You can also click that bell button because the subscribe button does nothing anymore. You can go over to Twitter, follow me there. Facebook, like the page. I don't know. Do you like pages on Facebook anymore? Is that a thing people do? I don't know. You can go to SoundCloud. We don't use it anymore because it's only 3 hours, but you can follow that too. Thank you all for joining. Yemmy, thank you so much for coming on, especially
not a problem.
on a rather short notice. But yes, thank you so much for agreeing to do this. Hopefully we'll have you on again because I believe Depraved mentioned in chat you also have some other games like Assassin's Creed. I also can see you're a fan of Banjo-Kazooie because that could be another one we could talk about at a future time. Go check out Yemmy and all of his stuff. Thank you so much, and we'll see you soon. Goodbye.
Thank you.